Hey everyone, it's Toby here from eBass Guitar, and today I want to talk to you about how to irritate your bandmates.
This is Toby's guide to overplaying. See you inside the video. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Toby and James Chat Bass. This is all about sharing secrets from hundreds of gigs that we've played. Now we're going to have a bit of fun and we're going to be humorous, we hope, today, but there's going to be some important points about this. Of what we're talking about is how not to irritate your bandmates, how not to overplay, and crucially, what you need to do to get asked back. So we're going to share some secrets, hopefully quite humorously, about what to do and what not to do. Should we crack on with it?
Let's crack on. So James, I have prepared a selection of statements and we're going to pick these apart. We're going to talk about why they're possibly not the best thing to do as a bass player. Now, it's important to remember with these is this is all about the type of gig you're playing. If you're playing a jazz fusion gig, then you're probably going to want to overplay quite a lot. But if we're playing a wedding or we're playing in a pop band or something like that, that's where we might have to lay back a bit as bass players and be more of a supportive member of the band.
So Toby, what have you got for us today?
So I've prepared 5 statements. I'm going to tell you these statements and then we can break them out a little bit and we can talk about why they're possibly not the best thing to do as a pop musician.
Go for it. What's statement number 1?
All right, here's the first statement, James. Think of playing bass as driving through the rush hour traffic. If you see a gap, fill it.
So Toby, what exactly do you mean by that?
I'll tell you what, James, I will show you what I mean. If you pop on a drum beat, I'll give you an example. So let's say we're playing Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. So we all know that. It's got a lot of gaps.
To me that sounds great. How can you fill them?
Oh, I can fill them.
So Toby, you started off simple there and then you got more and more complex as you went on there. So why, when you got complicated, isn't it such a great idea?
That's right, it sounded terrible, didn't it? And that is because I took away all of the space from the groove. Things only really groove and they're really only funky when there's space, when there's gaps for that groove to meld and to become more organic. And if I'm filling every single one of these things with notes, then all of a sudden that groove, that infectious earworm just completely goes. Plus, if there's a singer on this gig, they're going to hate it because I'm taking all the space and it's really difficult to sing over if you're trying to sing a melody line and you've got some idiot in the back just going, look at me, aren't I amazing? Then you're going to get fired, aren't you? Essentially, it just took away all the space and all the groove from that bass line. And it really annoys singers because a singer can't sing over that. They need the space, they need the gap, and you want to let them shine.
And I have actually come across scenarios before where singers don't want to play with certain bass players because they fill all the gaps and make it that much harder for the singer and the other musicians to do their job. So the trick here is just keep it simple, keep it close to the original, and you won't go far wrong. So Toby, let's move on to statement number 2. What have you got for us?
So for statement number 2, the pentatonic scale is your best friend. Use it whenever you can and make sure that everyone knows that you've got killer chops.
So talk about the scenario. I remember you talking to me about this, that you spent 2 years, I think you told me, learning all of these chops. Then you had to learn how to forget them. Talk to me about that.
That's right, yeah. It's a common saying, I think, with a lot of bass players that you spend 2 years learning how to do all this stuff and you spend the next 20 years learning not to use it because it only works in really, really small situations on a gig.
So let's hear it. Let's give us an example of these pentatonics. So what bass line are you going to choose?
I'm going to play Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. So this has got a really memorable bass line. I'm already doing it. And it's got all this space. Lovely space.
So start putting his bass lines.
Have I been fired? Do I have to?
You've been fired. You're fired.
So, James, as a bass player, if you came to a wedding and you saw me playing that over Uptown Funk, what would your reaction be?
So when you played that, you got gradually busier and busier and busier, and it got ridiculous towards the end. So maybe for about the first 20 to 30%, I'd be going, right, that's cool and exciting and it's adding something. But there is this point where it starts detracting. It starts getting too much. It's not what people want to hear. It takes away from the song and the music as a whole, and then starts to become about the ego of the player, seeing how many of their chops they can get in, what they can fit in. And I guess where you've got to be really super careful with this stuff is it starts becoming about athleticism rather than music. So my tip here is just keep it simple. Don't deviate from that groove, because just keeping it simple can be much harder than playing everything that you've got in your toolbox of bass lines.
I think one thing to think about bass is if you play everything right on a gig, no one notices. But as soon as you step out of that, suddenly everyone notices. Everyone can hear all those things. And if it's too much, or if it's messy and things like that, it's not going to be good. People aren't going to think, oh wow, look at his amazing Jacko chops. They're going to be thinking that ruined the song. I really liked Bruno Mars, and now I kind of hate it. Thanks.
And one of the biggest compliments as a bass player that you can get is where another musician actually says, I didn't notice you were there. Because that means you're just doing your job and you're doing it really well.
So James, would you like to hear my third statement?
Go on, give us that third statement.
You think solos are just for guitarists? Well, think again. James, could you give us an example of an awesome bass solo?
So this is how I would approach doing a bass solo on a pop band gig. I would keep it as simple and as related to the song as possible, and just add in a few little inflections. What I don't want to do is start making it a guitar solo where I start going like that. That is not what to do, because often if you're on a wedding or something like that, you want people to keep dancing. You want them to have something memorable, some hook, some foundation to hang on to. So let me take a groove, I'll show you what I'll do, and I'll add in a little bit of flavour for that bass solo.
You know, I've got to say, James, the thing that I really loved about that was that you never lost the groove. I kept my head nodding the entire time. I think if you had gone up 12 frets higher and started doing lots of twiddly stuff, all of that would have gone. I thought that was great. I would hire you.
One thing I often try and do when I get a bass solo is I will pick something that's recognizable, even if it's not the original song. Like I took that tune Venus there, I might superimpose that on another groove, or I might take something else like Superstition or whatever it might be, but something that people can recognize, and then make that my solo rather than just trying to come up with some free form improvisation.
I've done that actually. I've done that before. I took a long time learning old hip hop bass lines. And so if I ever did get the 8 bars or something, then I would play one of these hip hop bass lines. And it was great. You know, the crowd went wild.
Guys, we're halfway through this video now, and I've got a really quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this content, you're finding it useful, you're finding it fun, and crucially, you're not subscribed to the eBass Guitar YouTube channel, please can you hit that red subscribe button. What this means is you'll be the first to know when a new video goes live, and we release 1 to 2 videos every week on the eBass Guitar YouTube channel. And what this means for us is we can keep growing the reach of the eBass Guitar YouTube channel, because the more subscribers we've got, the more great free bass guitar educational content we can keep putting out there. So please hit that red subscribe button. So Toby, what's statement number 4?
Statement number 4 is learn how to slap. Trust me, it works over every song.
So Toby, what do you mean by that?
I mean that slap is an amazing technique and it's so much fun to do as bass players. I think that all bass players should know how to play slap. But in reality, you have to realise it only works over a really small amount of songs. No one is going to want to hear a slap bass line in their first dance, for example.
So go on, let's see where slap bass shouldn't be used.
Okay, if you put on a slow drum beat for me, let's pretend it's a first dance, and let's pretend it's the Ed Sheeran song. So let's put on the drum groove, James.
So let's pick something slow, round about 80 beats per minute. Go on.
Yeah, really nice. So let's paint the picture. Let's pretend it's the first dance. Everyone's gathered around the bride and groom.
What's this song?
Oh, this is Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran.
Nice.
It was a very popular first dance.
So imagine bride and groom in the middle.
Yeah.
Photographers, wedding cake,
Yeah.
tender, beautiful moment.
Yeah.
What would you not do? Now here's the thing, it comes back to that expression, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I can imagine getting a bride's shoe just lobbed right at my head for doing something like that. Can you imagine doing that on the first dance? Have there been any gigs that you've done in the past where slap bass has been really, really necessary for the gig, or could you just get away with playing fingerstyle?
The reality is I could probably have done the whole of my career without any slap bass whatsoever. 98% of the time, I don't touch slap bass whatsoever. Now and again, I will put the odd pop, the odd zing in, but I use it very, very sparingly and very, very carefully. I try and read the situation. I try and look at the musical director and see if he likes that kind of thing. If he starts frowning and shaking his head, I'd sort of stop doing that kind of thing. If he's sort of getting into it and he likes that kind of thing, then I might push it a little bit more and see where it can go. A lot of this stuff is about reading the situation that you're in. You can't go too far wrong when you're starting off on a new gig if you just keep things simple and straightforward and don't push too many boundaries, particularly in the early days.
So James, here is my 5th and final statement, and that is learn to play the song's melodies rather than playing the bass lines. Trust me, the vocalist will thank you for it.
Now this is one of these really interesting things. When we grow as musicians, if you go to music college or your teacher, if you're studying privately, they may say learn the melody. Now this is an amazing thing to get us bass players thinking melodically, thinking away from what the root notes are doing. And so it's a very natural thing to learn the melodies, and you'll be encouraged to do it. But it's not a great thing to do on a gig. It's one of those things that should stay in the practice room or the right situation if you're on a jazz gig. But be very, very careful if you start doing that on a function gig. Should we give you an example? What's a great thing that you could play the melody on?
Let's play Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder.
Okay, great. Let's find a shuffle groove, around about 120, I reckon. Let's give it a go. So I'm going to play what you should play.
I'm going to play what you shouldn't play.
And Toby's going to play what you might want to avoid. Let's go for it.
1, 2. In the context of that sounded really nice because you were playing the right thing. But can you imagine that in the middle of a band, if instead of playing that, you were like, oh yeah, let's just join in on the melody?
Well, the reality is all the bottom end is going to start falling out. All the foundation that the bass is there to provide and to make everybody else sound good could start to wither away. So it's really important just to keep it simple, just to keep it solid.
Guys, we are now at the end of the video. And do remember, this was just a tongue-in-cheek video, and hopefully it gave you a few ideas on the kind of things that we should be doing as bass players. A question for you guys would be, what things do you do to irritate your band members?
Do let us know in the comments below. So that's it for today. This is another episode of Toby and James Talk Bass. We hope these tips and these conversations are super useful, and we will see you guys next time. Just a quick one. If you need help with your bass guitar playing and you want to work with Toby or any of the other e-bass guitar coaches that you see on the e-bass guitar YouTube channel, head over to ebassguitar.com. Check out the Bass Lab Plus. There's a full step-by-step program there designed especially for the beginner to intermediate bass guitar player who wants to take their skills to that advanced level. I'll put a link in the description below.